Hello and welcome to A Bunch of Therapists with me, Michaela McCarthy.
And me, Dipti Solanki. We'll be bringing you stories and insights from inside the therapy room. So, Michaela, who is our guest today?
We have Windy Dryden, Professor Windy Dryden. He has been in the industry for many years, well known. He really kind of developed rational emotive behavioural therapy in this country and run this training at Goldsmiths University. He's written loads of books, hundreds of books. And he focuses very much on a one-session therapy where you don't have to focus on the assessment. You can just focus on the issue.
You go straight in.
Go straight in. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to him coming on to hear what he has to say about, you know, his journey, really, of when it all started.
Well, so much experience. I'm really looking forward to that conversation.
So, Windy, thanks for coming on our podcast.
My pleasure.
I mean, you've been writing books as long as I've been in the industry. So
When did you join the industry?
Well, I probably went into therapy about 29 years ago.
Right. So my first book came out in 1984. So.
Okay, yes, it's about right. So how did you get into psychology, you know, therapy, or the world of therapy? What made you...
How I got into psychology was I used to have a stammer.
Okay.
Well, I still have a stammer, but it was far more noticeable when I was a child and an adolescent. And, you know, going to an all-boys school, you do get the, you know, the butt of jokes. So I kind of, I think that kind of led me to become interested in feelings because not only was I was quite familiar with anxiety, I was struck by the fact that somebody who could be quite nice to me one moment in a one-to-one interaction would join in a group and then take the mickey out of me.
Okay. Find
that quite hurtful. And so I also got to know about the feeling of hurt. So being an only child, that's a factor as well, I think. And then my father we were talking about what I wanted to do because I actually became quite interested in languages and studied languages at A-level, did Russian, French and Latin.
Wow.
But of course, if you have a stammer, you know, you're not going to be an interpreter. And I wasn't good enough to be a translator. So I was kind of looking around to see what was what. My father said, I want you to be a lawyer because there are only two kinds of lawyers, rich ones and millionaires. I said, well, that's very interesting, Father, but I'm not interested in the law. He says, well, it doesn't matter. You know, I mean, that was a reflection of his particular psychology. But
so he was looking at how you could make money.
Yeah, I mean, because he struggled.
Okay.
Right.
You know, growing up, and he had to leave school in order to kind of make money for the family. So being financially secure was very important to him, for himself and for me. But it was, you know, you kind of in your late teens, you're not particularly interested in things like your pension at that point. So I'm not quite sure. I think it was probably a careers fair looking around at. And this psychology thing seemed interested, and I thought, well, okay, I'm not going to do anything with finance. I'm not going to do anything with languages. So this is something that I could imagine myself relating to. So I studied at university, dropped out after 3 weeks because I just wasn't ready. You know.
So you're not ready for uni, or not ready for the subject?
I wasn't ready to leave home.
Okay.
Basically, and that was a bit of a shock. So also became, you know, sort of homesick. So what I did was, like many, you know, young Jewish men and women at that point, went to Israel, went on a kibbutz. We went into the fields, you know, I collected my fair share of chicken shit, picked my fair share of oranges, etc., etc. And then I was ready for university. So I became interested in helping people. And there was something called Nightline, which universities had, which was like a university version of the Samaritans. And also I joined the Samaritans as well.
Okay.
So I got interested in counselling and therapy that way. But after my degree, first degree, I did a PhD on something called self-disclosure. Self-disclosure is basically what we disclose ourselves to another person, which, although I didn't realise at the time, has later had quite an interesting link with psychotherapy and counselling. So what happened then was I was reading all these academic papers about self-disclosure, came across articles about counselling, psychotherapy, didn't realise there was an opportunity, at that point to actually really pursue that as a career, which I did. Was lucky enough to get a grant to study at a 1-year postgraduate diploma in counselling in educational settings in 1975.
Was that unusual then with counselling? I imagine it was, because it was much more driven by psychoanalysis, wasn't it, sort of in the early days?
Yeah, very unusual. Counselling, when it existed, was either through the Marriage Guidance Council or in school counselling. There was school counselling at that point. And student counselling was a fairly new area. And the Aston course, as I call it, started in about 1971. And I did the course in 1974-75. Happened to be in the right place. They had these Fulbright scholars that were staffing it with a course tutor, a man called Richard Nelson Jones, who became quite well known. And then I actually joined the staff because the Fulbright fellowship scheme stopped and they needed to appoint somebody who had an interest in counselling, who was an academically minded person. So I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And that was the start. And I date my my career when I got appointed at Aston on the 1st of September 1975. So my 50th year in the field will be on the 1st of September.
And around that time, there wouldn't have been many courses like for psychotherapy.
No, there was courses at Kiel for school counselling, courses at Swansea for school counselling, and Aston. And that was about it. The courses were, as you said, apart from the psychoanalytic training, far and few between.
And so with the courses out there, the psychoanalytic, did it ever interest you, the psychoanalytic? No. I mean, the Aston course was quite heavily oriented toward, at that point, client-centered therapy. Person-centered therapy as a term hadn't been, brought into the public domain until later. And I kind of resonated with the theory of client-centered therapy, but not the practice. And so I kind of experimented with psychoanalytic therapy. There was a course, a 2-year course up at in Birmingham, which I did part-time course. I didn't really resonate to it either. But I did resonate to something called rational emotive therapy. There was an American called Maxie Maltzby who was a rational emotive therapist, came over and did some training on a US air base in Suffolk, which a few of us that were interested in RET went to. I always remember that because he was wearing a large pink and white check suit. You know how these things kind of stay in your mind. Yeah.
So I then went to study with Ellis in 1978. For the summer, I went to the Institute for the Advanced Study of Rational Psychotherapy, as it was called then. Studied with Ellis, did their training, was his co-therapist for the month of August, which was really quite an experience.
Yeah, that would have been an experience.
So I thought the person-centered training was a good ground in the, in the relationship aspect of psychotherapy. The REBT was a good grounding in the more technical aspects of actually helping people, in a more specific way. So looking back, I think it wasn't planned that way. I mean, nothing about my career has been planned to that extent. But, I took advantage when of opportunities that came my way.
So how did you progress then when you...
So I worked at the University of Aston from 1975 till about 1983. And Richard Nelson Jones and I also staffed the counselling service. Our trainees, because I actually went from being a trainee to a tutor. So then I was in charge of trainees, was able to place people there. And I also started up a private practice, got a placement in a local GP service. And the head GP wouldn't allow me to actually go into the surgery, but I could see people in my own home, if you like, at that point. So I started up a small private practice almost immediately.
And so your private practice, do you still run today?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think I would say, looking back over my career, I've never done anything full time, but I've done a lot of things part time. So if you're an academic in the field of counselling psychotherapy, you've got to do research, you've got to do teaching, you've got to do the supervision, you've got to do lecturing, but you've also got to see clients. And as I say, I have my private practice, which has never been large, but I've never wanted it to be large.
So then, when did you obviously you were teaching, and then you went to Goldsmiths. How did that happen at Goldsmiths?
Well, the Aston course was going quite well, but in 1981 there were quite horrific university cuts.
Yeah.
Which is par for the course these days. But I mean, these were really quite swinging. So Aston suffered a 31% cut to the budget.
Right.
And so they offered a voluntary redundancy scheme. A few people took it. They upped it a bit. A few more people took it. And then they really kind of whacked it up. And a lot of people took it, including myself. So I, at that point, the course that I was running, was called the a diploma in counselling in educational settings, was transferred to the business centre in a part of the business centre called Manpower Management and Legal Studies. Now, really?
Gosh.
And so the writing was on the wall. So, I decided to take the voluntary redundancy. So then I embarked on a period of trying to get a job. And so I got the job at Goldsmiths on my 55th application. So I'd applied for and got rejected for 54 jobs in the field of counselling, psychology.
Was it mainly focused down in London or
No. It's
all over?
Including Papua New Guinea. I have the distinction, Michaela, of being rejected for a job in Papua New Guinea.
Wow, everywhere.
What
were the roles that you were applying for?
Lecturing in counselling.
Right.
Interesting enough. At their university. So just out of interest, so you were going for all these applications to be a lecturer, to teach? Not only a lecturer, to be a practitioner as well, and also to be
in
an
the therapy world. In the therapy world.
Yeah.
And they were turning you down because?
Who knows?
They wouldn't tell you.
One never knows. I mean, the interesting thing was, I finally got some feedback that I was coming across what I thought it was in a confident way, which was seen as to be arrogant. So the next job I applied for, which happened to be Goldsmiths, I deliberately stammered more and got the job.
That's really interesting.
To show more of a vulnerability.
Yeah, but do you find then that because of your stammer, there's a certain way that you need to speak and present yourself to?
No, because at that point I was about as fluent then as I am now.
Okay.
So I've never regarded myself as a stammerer.
Okay.
But a person who stammers under certain conditions and not under other conditions. So no, it actually wasn't to do with that.
So what did you adapt to make yourself more vulnerable in that interview?
Deliberately stammering more.
I see.
Yeah. So I'd say things that they'd ask me a question, I'd go, I'd put it on. I'm not not proud of that, but I'm not ashamed of it either, because
sure,
it seemed to be
after 50 applications.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so I got the job at Goldsmiths, and that was to start a master's in counselling.
Okay.
And so I had an opportunity to come back to London.
Mm-hmm.
I got married in 1981. I went to America straight afterwards on a 6-month sabbatical, trained at the Centre for Cognitive Therapy with Aaron Beck. I probably think it was one of the first people from Britain who did an extended training in cognitive therapy in 1981. But the course that I was appointed to run was a more generic course, and it was a 3-year course.
Okay.
So I ran that for a while, and then had an opportunity to actually segue the master's. Well, actually, I had to do a master's in rational emotive behaviour therapy, which was the first master's course. I think there may have been one elsewhere, but in South America. But I think this was the first one in Europe on REBT, which we started in 1993.
Windy, for people listening who might not be aware of the difference between cognitive behavioural therapy and rational emotive therapy, can you just...
Well, first of all, I see cognitive behavioural therapy as an umbrella term. So, there's no just one approach. Basically, cognitive behavioural therapy is a field where, the emphasis is on, how people think and behave, as a way of explaining, how they feel. And, in terms of explaining, why they have the problems and what they and the therapist need to do to address it. Rational emotive behavior therapy is a specific approach within that. And its major goal is to help people to change their rigid and extreme attitudes to flexible and non-extreme attitudes when they're facing life adversities. And it's also got a particular sort of take on actually promoted self-acceptance rather than self-esteem. And
what's the difference between self-acceptance and self-esteem?
Well, one's, you can argue you can rate yourself. Self-esteem is based on an estimation. You can esteem yourself. You give yourself a rating and a judgment. Whereas self-acceptance is really saying, actually, don't do that. You're far too complex. Just accept yourself as a fallible, complex, fluid human being. Sure, there's certain things you may not like, certain things you may not like, but don't give the whole of you,
Right.
a rating. So therefore, the idea of, I want to improve my self-esteem might not be problematic for other forms of cognitive behavior therapy, but it would be particularly problematic, in REBT, because we argue that if we help you to improve your self-esteem, we're helping you to buy into a way of thinking that say, yes, I can rate myself and I am worthwhile if things are going well, but I'm not worthwhile if things are going poorly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can I ask, if we go into the world we are in now today, the NHS is very focused on CBT and the psychology. Where does rational emotive therapy...
Well, rational emotive behaviour therapy has almost been written out of...
Because...
I don't know. That's the honest answer. I don't know. So if you look at probably one of the most, certainly it's a best-selling book on CBT in Britain. It's called Introduction to Cognitive Behavior Therapy. And you look in the index, you won't find any reference to rational emotive behavior therapy. It's as if rational emotive behavior therapy has just been wiped out of British psychotherapy, and people who are trained in CBT, and it's a kind of like a generic manualized type of training that you get. They don't know anything about rational emotive behavior. They're not introduced to it.
So professionally, why do you think it was kind of, it was like 1 minute it was there, next minute it doesn't exist in this country?
I mean, quite frankly, I'm one of the things that I don't get involved in because it doesn't really suit my temperament. Is professional organisations.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really party to to that. I just say, well, okay, it is what it is. I'm not a political.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to fight for the politics of getting RABT back into who knows where. I'm just going to do what I enjoy and what I'm good at: practice, training, writing books, and off I go.
So you have written near on 250 books, is that right?
Well, if we're being pedantic,
we are. Let's be
290.
pedantic. Wow, 290.
Yeah,
that's rather incredible.
Where do you find the time to write all these books?
There's a Windy Dryden that is down at the cafe writing at the moment.
Okay, right, yeah.
No, I write 500 words a day.
Okay.
Right? I've written my 500 words a day today,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll go home and I'll probably write another 500 words. So I like to stay ahead of myself.
Mm.
And do you do that first thing in the morning? I'm asking completely out of personal interest.
No,
because...
no. I tell you what, I get up about 6,
Mm-hmm.
make myself a cup of tea, go into the computer room,
Mm-hmm.
write 500 words,
Mm-hmm.
come back, do my exercises, and go out and do my 50-minute jog walk. And I am then ready for the day.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
So tell me what you write about most.
I write about most now about single session therapy.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's your baby, isn't
Yeah,
it?
so how did that start? How did it come up with a single session
Well,
therapy?
I had, well, if we, I mean, I didn't, this is all kind of retrospective,
Mm-hmm.
but one of the things that I was really influenced by when I was at Aston was the Gloria films.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are the Gloria films?
Yeah. For the
Single session
viewers and listeners, what
Okay.
are, if you could tell them what the Gloria films
The Gloria
are?
films are, technically speaking, the series of films were called 3 Approaches to Psychotherapy, which was released in 1965. First time there were films of therapy, and they're known as the Gloria tapes or the Gloria films because the client was known as Gloria.
Mm-hmm.
And there were 3 therapists who actually were originators of the approaches that they developed. Carl Rogers representing client-centered therapy, Fritz Perls representing Gestalt, and Albert Ellis representing our emotive therapy. And they're examples of single session therapy in a sense that nobody of the therapists knew anything about Gloria.
Mm-hmm.
She was apparently supposed to bring up the same issues with all 3 of them, but didn't. I don't know.
I remember watching and they were sort of a little bit different.
Sorry?
I think it was because of her interaction with the different therapists.
Well, exactly. I mean, so interestingly enough, there was a British Gloria made many years later with a guy called Mike, I think. And but he had therapy with 7 therapists. And I was invited but turned down the opportunity to do that because he was going to bring up the same issue with all 7. Well, my point is that, if I was number 6, he may have been cured. Number 3.
Yeah.
So I didn't like that. But that was something which stayed with me because it's the first time I actually seen therapy. I mean, otherwise, the only time you see it is when you're a client. Back in those days, and you can't really afford to have divided attention. Being a client and then being a student at the same time. So I got interested in that. It was always my practice that when I did training courses to do a live demonstration.
Mm-hmm.
So I would do a training course on RABT, say, do 1 or 2 live demonstrations with people volunteering from the audience who had a genuine problem. I got interested in that. Again, it didn't twig that this was single session therapy because, again, it is. And so I read a book that was published in 1990 by an Israeli psychologist called Moshe Talman, which was on single session therapy, which I read in 2001. Interested, but it didn't really grab me. Came back to it around about 2013 because I knew I was going to retire at 2014, and I was far from done. I wasn't going to I'm not interested in gardening or anything like that. So I still wanted to be active in the field, but what did I want to do? So I have an interest in procrastination. And
an interest in yours or an interest in others?
Oh, interested in helping others, yeah. Yeah, I'm an anti-crastinator.
Oh, are you the opposite?
Yeah, I kind of do things early. Or I was going to, because I was interested in these articles about all these waiting lists in the National Health Service that you could. So I thought, well, we have to be able to do something about this. So I kind of went back to single session therapy, reread the book by Moshe Talman. This time really resonated with it, decided that it was more interesting than procrastination. And of course, with people who procrastinate, you have to spend a lot of time chasing them up to get paid. So
that wouldn't have been a lucrative practice.
It would not have been, unless you were going to charge them in advance, which I think you can do.
Well, some people do that.
Yeah,
now, don't
and
they?
then of course you'd be quids in because they would have paid you for 10 sessions, but probably only turn up for one.
Yeah.
I didn't like that whole kind of financial bit, so I got interested in single session therapy. I did some training at the Bouverie Centre in Australia online at that point, and then started to sort of see people for this thing called single session therapy. Started to train people in it.
So tell me, what types of people, what issues would they come with for a single session therapy?
Anything.
Okay.
People, I mean, I read a book on it that was published in 2018 called Very Brief Therapeutic Conversations. And I did an analysis. These were largely of the live demonstrations that I did. Largely, interesting enough, the most popular subject was actually procrastination.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then anxiety, and not so much depression. That kind of, or maybe it cropped up under different headings. But you get a lot of problem with guilt and shame and changing habits and things like that. So
kind of putting off change somehow, that they would procrastinate.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people who actually, I mean, two things about single session therapy that, I want to make clear to your listeners. That first of all, it's not about one session and one session only. It's about, let's see if we can help you in one, but if not, go away, implement what you've learned, reflect on it, and then see if you want some more help. That's fine. We can give you some more help later. So it's about offering people who don't want to commit to longer term therapy. It's not to replace anything.
Yeah.
I think that's the important thing. And we do know, in fact, in agencies, that a lot of people who go to therapy agencies only go once. They don't seem to have this idea that a lot of therapists believe that clients should have, that we're signing you up for a long time,
20 years.
Yeah. Or at least months. And so I got interested in that because people seem to resonate with it. And I'm often asked, are there anybody that you wouldn't offer single session therapy to? And I said, yes, people who don't want it. If you want it, you can have it. If not, you can't. And then, well, what about this disorder? No, it's about, we don't think in terms of disorder. We think in terms of, there's a particular person in front of you who've come for a particular reason. Let's help them. And if they want something that you can't do, you're honest enough and transparent enough to say, I can't help you to do that, but I might be able to, help you to do, this little bit of that if you're interested. So, so I really got interested in it. And I think it kind of revitalized my career. I sort of felt around about 2012, 2013, as I was coming to the end of my time at Goldsmiths, that, I was getting a bit stale, and I really needed a new challenge. And so single session therapy is...
So tell me, the one therapy session, the single session, and you've written loads of books and you wake up at 6 and start writing 500 words.
Yeah.
Is it that there's just new thoughts around it or some reflection around the single session and then you're able to put something else together?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that... so I will be doing... A lot of my books are transcripts of actual sessions that I've done with people. And they agreed to take part, and they agreed to send to do an evaluation, complete evaluations. I'm actually the book I'm writing at the moment is a book called The Single Session Therapy Mindset, which I think we believe in the field is really the core of the work, because if you have a conventional psychotherapy mindset, you kind of think in terms of, well, it's going to take us quite a while to take a case history and do an assessment and then this, that, and the other. And then, we'll start and then, it will take us quite a while to develop the relationship. And then we're going to go for relational depth. And so that's all in the other conventional therapy mindset. And we say in single session therapy, fine, that's great. Don't try to do any of that. In single session therapy, because you haven't got time to take a history or anything like that. You got to get down to work straight away.
So Windy, on that note, I'm sure everyone understands this, whether you're a therapist or someone receiving therapy, the relationship is important, whether it's in single session or...
Sure.
And you mentioned relational depth there. Do you think it's possible to build a relationship very quickly with a client in single session therapy, or is that the part that becomes compromised?
Well, I think you can, I mean, I tend to think when I'm answering that question more in terms of the concept of the working alliance. So the working alliance is saying, look, there are bonds between a therapist and client. There's the goals about, are we working towards the same thing or different things? The views, do we kind of have a shared understanding of what we're doing or not? And there's what we're doing, the tasks. And so certainly in single session therapy, we believe that we can develop a good enough relationship in terms of the bonds and the goals. Check out that there is a shared understanding that we're doing, the same thing. In other words, for example, I often... start off my therapy saying to the person, what's your understanding of the purpose of our conversation today? And if they say, oh, it's for me to give you my history and then this will be the beginning of a 6th year, I say, no, that's not my understanding. So we have to get it on the, on the same wavelength. Now, my experience, and because one of the things that I do ask for in this evaluation is, for them to describe their relationship with me, with the clients. And I think looking at that, what people say is that, that it's more of a conversation, and it's really, it's focused, and it helps them to work toward their goal for the session. And they like my relaxed, humorous style, which people tend to reference. So I think I would say that, in my answer to your question, that is good enough to do the work.
Sure.
So tell me, with your one session therapy, are you teaching that now?
Yes, although we don't call it one session therapy. I call it ONEplus therapy.
ONEplus therapy.
And I call it ONEplus because we're still trying to help you with the one.
Yep.
But the plus is part of the deal. Whereas single session therapy, if you take what we call a Ronseal approach, Ronseal Woodstein, it does exactly what it says on the tin. Single session therapy, it's the therapy that lasts for one session.
Yeah.
But it's not, although it can be.
But if you look at the single session work, wouldn't it be sort of someone saying, okay, I'll go into therapy, I've got this issue, I'll have a single session to make sense of what this issue is, and then make a decision afterwards whether they wanted to
come. It opens the door, doesn't it? Yeah.
Well, it could open the door, and one of the most neglected areas, I think, of work is what people call either a chemistry session or a taster session. People say that we'll offer you a free 15, 20, some instances, half an hour, call or online or something to see how we get on, to see if you can work with me, and I mean, you can do that in single session therapy, but quite often it's for people who want, actually, I don't want to commit myself to finding, and I think that we need, as a field, to be able to be open to people who want to come briefly, very briefly, moderately, and long term. We can't just, say therapy. I mean, there's a guy on the one of the social media channels. He says therapy is this. Mm-hmm. It lasts, for years, and you have to see the same person every week at the same time. And if you don't do that, it's not therapy.
Okay,
fine. That's light years from where I see therapy. So I think we do. My view is that we do need to be responsive and to actually offer people, help in the way that they want it, and that means going forward we're going to have to be a little bit more open to do things, with phones, online, etc.
And where do you do the training for the one session therapy?
I run a course, if I can advertise.
Yeah, of course you can.
I can advertise. I do a certificate in single session therapy with online events.
Oh yeah,
which is 8 3-hour sessions. Mm-hmm. And part of that is that they have to do single session therapy live in front of the audience, and we kind of give them some feedback. So we actually kind of see them doing.
And do you want the training to evolve a bit more?
Yeah. I'd love to the training to evolve a bit more. And so I'd like it to be open. I'd like the NHS to do it, but I think the NHS is so addicted to the idea of the first contact has got to be an assessment one, that I think that's a major stumbling block. It doesn't make sense to be triaged for one session. You might as well have the one session.
Well, Windy, thank you so much. It's been a lovely
conversation.
Quick, huh?
It's gone quick. I was just getting going.
We'll have to get you on again.
For sure.
One thing do a live demonstration. Anyway, no.
Yeah, but that would be quite interesting. Why not?
Yes, I agree. Let's do that.
You can be the punter.
No problem.
If you've only got a genuine problem that I can help you with.
I have many genuine problems you can help me with, I'm sure.
There you are. We're on.
Yeah.
Before we finish, for our viewers and listeners, if there were to be one thing that they could take away from our conversation, what would you like that to be?
That's a very good single session therapy question. Mm-hmm. When you have an issue, make it your priority to see somebody who can help you quickly, rather than get caught up in a sort of a situation whereby help's going to be delayed and delayed and delayed. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Just things will change. You will change if it's delayed so many weeks.
That's right.
It's been a real pleasure to meet you.
It's been a pleasure to be delighted.
Yeah.
To be invited. To be delighted.
Be delighted and invited.
We've delighted him as well.
You have.
You've been listening to A Bunch of Therapists with me, Michaela McCarthy, and Dipti Solanki.
And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to review, like and subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcasts, and do follow us on our socials. Until next time, see you soon.